It's Thanksgiving, a moment when the world pauses, but we don't. Because gratitude isn't a holiday, it's a responsibility. It's the spark that reminds us that no one rises alone, that every step we take is built on the shoulders, sacrifices, and silent acts of others. And today, more than ever, we need that reminder. We're busier, more distracted, more disconnected, yet the truth hasn't changed. Together is still better. Thanksgiving isn't about perfection on the table. It's about connection at the table. It's about choosing presence over pressure, people over performance, meaning over noise. And if there was ever a moment to recommit to that idea, it's now, because gratitude without action is a feeling, but gratitude with people becomes a force. So today, don't just celebrate Thanksgiving. Live it, lead it, share it. Because the world needs more than thankful individuals. It needs thankful communities. Gratitude is the fuel that keeps us human, because it brings us back to what truly matters when the world keeps trying to pull us away. Men especially carry a unique weight, expectations to be strong, composed, unshaken. But gratitude interrupts that pressure. It shifts the focus from what we must endure to what we already have, and that small shift can be the difference between feeling alone in the struggle and remembering we're supported, seen, and valued. Gratitude challenges the silent battles men fight by reminding them that they don't have to earn permission to feel. Many men grow up believing emotions must be controlled, hidden, or held back. But gratitude isn't about vulnerability in the dramatic sense. It's about acknowledging the people, moments, and gestures that make life feel less heavy. When a man allows himself to appreciate what's around him, he quietly gives himself permission to breathe, to soften, to reconnect with the world instead of freezing himself out of it. Gratitude also reshapes how men show up in their relationships, especially through the eyes of the women who care about them. Women often see the emotional load men never speak about, the weight behind their silence, the stress buried under responsibility. When a man expresses appreciation, even something small, it becomes a bridge. It tells her that he notices, that he values her presence, that he is not numb or disconnected, but deeply aware. And for women, that awareness is often the greatest reassurance. Gratitude strengthens a man's sense of identity because it shifts him from what he must achieve to who he chooses to be. Men crave direction, purpose, and clarity, yet the world constantly measures them by performance. Gratitude flips that script. It reminds them that worth comes not from constant output, but from the relationships that shape them, the people who believe in them, and the moments that restore their sense of self. It's not weakness, it's recalibration. Gratitude deepens connection between men themselves, a space where appreciation is rarely spoken but deeply needed. Men may not always articulate support, but they feel it. Expressing gratitude toward another man, brother, friend, mentor, cuts through the barriers of pride and competitiveness. It says, I see you, I value you, you matter here. That unspoken acknowledgement reinforces belonging in a world where many men quietly question whether they truly fit anywhere at all. Gratitude keeps us human because it anchors men to the relationships that give their lives meaning, strength, and direction, reminding them that even in their toughest seasons, they were never meant to. Walk alone. You can't be thankful alone because gratitude only becomes real when it moves between people, not just within us. Men often try to carry everything inside: stress, pressure, responsibility, believing that silence is strength. But gratitude loses its meaning when it stays hidden. The moment a man expresses appreciation, even quietly, it transforms from a private emotion into a shared energy that strengthens trust, intimacy, and belonging. Connection gives gratitude its power because it turns acknowledgement into impact. Many men grow up believing they should handle life independently, that relying on others somehow makes them less capable. But the truth is that gratitude requires another person to receive it. When a man looks someone in the eyes and says thank you, he's not just appreciating an action, he's recognizing the relationship behind it. And that recognition becomes a moment of connection that would never exist in isolation. Gratitude becomes a bridge between men and the women in their lives, especially when words don't come easily. Women often notice emotional shifts long before a man ever verbalizes them. They see the exhaustion, the quiet worry, the unspoken plea. So, when a man expresses gratitude, even in a single sentence, it reassures her that he's not disappearing into himself. It tells her she's valued, that her presence matters, and that he still chooses closeness over distance. That small exchange carries far more weight than men often realize. Gratitude strengthens the bonds between men themselves, where communication often takes place through actions rather than long conversations. Men rarely sit down to discuss feelings, but they understand respect, loyalty, and acknowledgement in their own language. A simple "I appreciate you" between brothers, friends, or teammates cuts through ego and competitiveness. It signals that the relationship is safe, meaningful, and anchored in mutual respect, not just shared experiences or responsibilities. Connection makes gratitude transformative because it turns the internal into the interpersonal. For men who feel the pressure to be self-reliant, expressing appreciation becomes an act of courage. It's a way of saying, "I don't stand here alone," without admitting weakness. It reinforces the truth that relationships, romantic, familial, or brotherly, aren't just supportive, they are essential. Helping a man feel understood and grounded. You can't be thankful alone because the power of gratitude isn't in how deeply you feel it, but in how deeply it is felt by someone else when you share it. The people at your table shape the path ahead because who you allow close determines the direction of your life more than ambition, talent, or strength ever will. Men often underestimate this truth. They believe their journey is defined by how hard they work or how much they endure, but in reality, it is the people beside them, not the obstacles in front of them, that quietly guide their future. The influences we let in, voices, attitudes, expectations, become the compass we follow without even realizing it. The people closest to a man shape his identity because they become the mirror he eventually accepts as truth. Men who sit with those who doubt them begin to doubt themselves. Men surrounded by those who push them forward begin to rise. Men who choose isolation start believing the world is colder than it really is. The environment at the table becomes the environment in the mind. And for many men, that internal environment decides whether they move with confidence or carry hidden AR into everything they do. The people at a man's table influence how he shows up emotionally, especially through the perspective of the women who care about him. Women often see the shifts in his energy long before he sees them himself. They notice when a man is surrounded by people who drain him, diminish him, or keep him small. They recognize when his circle lifts him up or when it quietly erodes his sense of self. When a man sits with people who encourage his strengths, she sees him growing. When he sits with people who feed his insecurities, she feels him withdrawing. Even if he doesn't speak it aloud, the people around a man also determine the level of accountability he carries. Men rise when their circle challenges them with honesty rather than flattery. A table filled with people who expect more from him, not out of pressure but out of belief, creates a future anchored in responsibility and purpose. Conversely, a table filled with those who tolerate complacency encourages a man to shrink from his potential. The expectations at the table become the standards he lives by. The people at a man's table ultimately set the pace of his journey because they influence what he believes possible. Men don't need crowds. They need the right few. They need the people who remind them of who they are when the world pressures them to be someone else, the ones who believe in their future even on the days they doubt it themselves. Small acts of appreciation create massive ripples because it's rarely the grand gestures that transform a relationship or a life. It's the simple acknowledgments that remind people they matter. Men often underestimate how powerful small expressions of gratitude can be. A quick thank you, a nod of acknowledgement, a moment of genuine recognition. These tiny moments carry a weight far heavier than men realize. They soften the edges of stress, break the tension of long days, and quietly rebuild the emotional bonds that responsibility and pressure sometimes wear down. Small acts of appreciation reach deeper because men are often taught to keep their emotions contained, measured, or hidden. Many believe they need to show strength by minimizing what they feel or what they need. But appreciation doesn't ask for vulnerability. It simply asks for awareness. When a man acknowledges the efforts of someone close to him, he creates space for connection with compromising his sense of strength. It becomes a safe expression, one that bridges the gap between how much he feels and how little he sometimes expresses. Small acts of appreciation resonate powerfully from a woman's perspective because they show emotional presence more clearly than dramatic declarations ever could. Women often carry emotional labor quietly, noticing the details, holding the unspoken worries, managing the invisible load. When a man offers a small thank you when he notices something she thought went unseen, it becomes more than gratitude. It becomes validation. It tells her she's not invisible, that her contributions matter, and that he sees the world through a lens that includes her, not just himself. Small acts of appreciation strengthen the bonds between men in ways that few other expressions can. Men often build relationships through shared activities, shared struggles, or shared missions. But appreciation adds meaning to those bonds. A simple "I've got you" or "thanks for being here" cuts through the masculine tendency towards silence and reminds both men that loyalty isn't assumed, it's acknowledged. These small gestures reinforce trust and belonging, creating a ripple effect that deepens the relationship without requiring long emotional conversations. Small acts of appreciation create lasting impact because they accumulate over time, shaping how people feel in a man's presence. One small gesture can lift someone's spirit for a moment, but many small gestures can reshape their entire sense of security, connection, and worth. They turn ordinary days into reminders that someone cares, someone notices, and someone values what they bring to the world. Presence is the greatest gift you can give today because it's the one thing people crave most but receive the least. In a world built on distraction, speed, and constant noise, being fully present has become rare, almost unfamiliar. Men especially struggle with this, not because they don't care, but because their minds are often occupied with responsibility, pressure, and the silent weight of things they believe they must solve alone. When a man chooses to be present, even briefly, he offers something far more meaningful than solutions. He offers himself. Presence matters because men are conditioned to equate love with provision, protection, and performance. They often believe that showing up means fixing, providing, or doing. But the truth is that presence isn't measured in actions, it's measured in attention. When a man sits at a table, puts his phone down, and actually engages, he communicates a message far more powerful than words. You matter more than what's pulling at my mind. For men, learning to disconnect from the world long enough to connect with the people in front of them is not just a skill, it's a shift in identity. Presence becomes even more significant through the eyes of the women who love them. Women don't need perfection. They need connection. They can sense when a man is physically near but mentally distant. They notice when he's drowning quietly in stress or retreating into silence. And while they understand the reasons behind it, they crave his presence, not as an obligation but as an emotional anchor. When a man gives his undivided attention, even for a short moment, it reassures her that she still has access to him, that she hasn't lost him to the noise of his responsibilities or the weight of his unspoken worries. Presence strengthens the emotional bond men share with other men, even if neither of them articulates it openly. Men often support each other through proximity rather than conversation, sitting together, working side by side, or simply sharing space without needing to fill the silence becomes a form of connection. When a man is truly present with another man, really paying attention instead of being mentally elsewhere, he fosters trust, loyalty, and an unspoken sense of brotherhood. Presence becomes the bridge between understanding and support in a language men instinctively understand. Presence transforms the atmosphere around a man because it grounds everyone who experiences it. Children feel safer, partners feel seen, friends feel valued, and the man himself feels more centered, more connected, and more aligned with the people he cares about. Being present breaks the cycle of busyness that pulls relationships apart and replaces it with moments that draw people closer, reminding everyone that what truly matters isn't what we give, buy, or accomplish. It's the time and attention we choose to share. Thanksgiving is a reminder that together we'll always win because no matter how strong, capable, or resilient a man believes he must be, life was never designed to be lived alone. Men often carry the quiet belief that their value is tied to how much they can handle on their own, how much weight they can lift, how many problems they can fix, how many people they can protect. But Thanksgiving interrupts that mindset. It forces a pause. It brings people back to the same table and reminds them that strength isn't proven in isolation, it's proven in connection. Thanksgiving forces men to recognize that their greatest victories have never been solo achievements. Behind every milestone is someone who encouraged, someone who supported, someone who believed even when they doubted themselves. Men rarely stop to acknowledge this because acknowledging help feels unfamiliar, sometimes even uncomfortable. Yet Thanksgiving makes that acknowledgement not only acceptable but essential. It shines a light on the truth that every strong man was strengthened by someone else, family, friends, mentors, partners. Long before he stood confidently on his own 2 feet, Thanksgiving becomes even more meaningful when seen through the eyes of women, who understand connection intuitively. Women naturally sense the emotional undercurrents men often avoid expressing. They see the toll that silent burdens take and the exhaustion behind steady face. When Thanksgiving invites togetherness, it becomes a moment where she hopes he'll let himself lean in, not to be weak, but to be human. When a man allows himself to be supported, listened to, or celebrated, it reassures her that he values the relationship more than the illusion of self-sufficiency. Thanksgiving also reinforces the idea that men don't need to have everything figured out before they show up. Often, men withdraw when they feel they're not performing at their best. They isolate, thinking they're protecting others from their stress or shortcomings. But togetherness teaches a different truth. People want presence, not perfection. Sitting at the table, even with uncertainty, exhaustion, or doubt, creates a space where love, support, and belonging can reach him. And that simple act can shift a man's entire emotional trajectory. Thanksgiving shows that unity builds resilience in ways independence never can. When men gather with other men, friends, brothers, fathers, they experience a form of support that doesn't rely on deep emotional conversations. It's in the shared laughter, the familiar stories, the silent understanding between them. Togetherness gives men permission to stop competing and start connecting. It reminds them that they're not alone in their ambitions, their fears, or their responsibilities. Thanksgiving ultimately highlights that every meaningful journey requires a strong circle, not a strong facade. The people around the table, family members, partners, children, friends, act as mirrors, reminding a man of who he is beyond his workload or worries. They become the anchors that steady him, the voices that guide him, and the hands that lift him when life becomes heavier than expected. Togetherness gives him the courage to keep going, the humility to stay grounded, and the clarity to recognize that life is not measured by how far he travels alone, but by how deeply he connects along the way.